Hello everyone and welcome back to the Wicked Weekly. My name is Brian if you happen to be new around here, and in today's video we're going to do a deep dive into the latest updates from Thomas. This fundamentally changes the projection for the release date, and that's actually good news because it looks like it's going to be coming much sooner than we expect. We're going to break it down here for you in this video. Also, console release. We do know that they are targeting 1.0 for console release. Obviously, this is going to be impacted by what we share in this video. However, Thomas does share some concerning things. One console might not make the cut. So we're going to talk about that, its potential impacts. I'd love to hear your thoughts as always in this video. Like I said, guys, we are doing a deep dive. I feel so thankful for every one of you. Over the last month, 135 of you guys have hit that subscribe button and taken a chance here on the channel and the content. So welcome in, and really do appreciate each and every one of you. Also, thank you to Zach the Slack, hitting that tag button over on Discord. I was spending the weekend playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is an incredible experience. Absolutely love it. So when I got this tag, I had to dive into it and hopefully putting this video together for you guys, getting you all up to speed. Let's not waste any more time. We got a lot to cover. Let's kick it off with Thomas saying, "Yo folks, I'm back. I promised my family that at some point we do a week-long vacation. This was initially promised for that I do it after the early access of Wicked launched, but that was not possible. So he then pushed it to a year after the Breach launched, but that still was not possible. So finding the time after now, the Breach refined us out. The funny and perhaps sad thing is that just the day before he ended up getting sick, and so doing all the family stuff while having flu-like symptoms. But anyway, he's back in the office and he's ready to rock. And rock and roll is probably a good name for this video because there is so much to talk about. I do want to make a mention though. It's important that he's taking time off, being that work-life balance is very important. However, it does also show that when you're working as hard as he does, when you take the foot off the pedal, you do end up finding sometimes you're getting sick. I know I work in that same kind of way. So that seems to be maybe something perhaps you probably have experienced that. I'd be very curious one way or the other. But I know for myself is that whenever I've been in these constant, really hyper focus modes, coming out of it, my body tends to be like, okay, now I can finally let this virus that I've been keeping at bay actually plague, kind of turn that on. So it's a bummer he got sick, but I'm glad that hopefully him and his family had a good time. Zach the Slack asks, is there any juicy leaks for this co-op yet? And Thomas goes on to say, not yet. They have to look at the many bugs that have been logged since he's been out and where they are currently now. But I do think that we're getting close. In fact, there was a 2-hour-long interview that Thomas gave over with Action RPG. And he kind of talks about that we're just a couple of months away, which is really the trajectory that I've been thinking. Honestly, I've been targeting September for the co-op update. It could shift to October, but August would be super early. So maybe we'll see some PTR news. Maybe who knows what's going to go on with that. But maybe that's going to be what happens in August, September. Hopefully, if it's ready to rock and roll, October, if they just need a little bit more tweaking. Note that the co-op update probably won't be coming with another marketing push, which means a lot of people will be checking out the game or being interested in seeing what the game's all about for the first time. So I think all in all, we're right on schedule. Now, Thomas goes on, and this is where the juicy bits really kind of start to kick off. He says, one thing I can confirm is that we're going to ship 1.0 sooner than most people expect. Now, I've been targeting 2026 with a potential 2027 release, depending on the cadence and really what the roadmap looks like. But he goes on to say, we just generally feel like Wicked is in pretty good spot, and we want to bring the console players on so that as well, in order to do that, they need to exit early access. This is obviously still a lot that they have to get done, and they still have some time to do that. But they generally feel like they will be able to polish things up nicely and add the features that we think are still missing and get 1.0 out the door so that we will make Wicked accessible to way, way more players. Now, Ryan jumping in here because there's a couple of points to make. I do think that with 1.0, we do know that's when console release is coming. So for anybody out there, when's it coming to console? When the game is fully released. They could technically do an early access on console. I know Xbox generally supports that, but we've got some bad news for the Xbox players potentially here in just a second. But even still with that mindset, you get so much more marketing and excitement when you're actually out of early access, when you don't have that looming wipe that is going to come with 1.0 hanging over your heads. So a lot of people will be able to jump in and play and enjoy this. So the console release is going to be important. It's important that they get it right. It's also important to note that I think one aspect of this is that this game is not going to be done with 1.0. They're still planning expansions and more. In fact, Thomas goes on to share a little bit more about that here in a bit. But let's let him continue on with his updates. He goes on to say that he thinks that console players are going to be obviously feeling left out right now. They've received over 200 messages a week regarding console players and when they can finally sit down and play Wicked. And he goes on to say, by the way, the current market conditions also might have them only release on PS5 and potentially Switch 2 for the first time being. They have to discuss things with Microsoft to see what makes sense for Xbox. And when it's all said and done, Xbox is making a shift to PC. You can technically, through GeForce Now, actually play this game on Xbox. However, this could be a real showing of what really kind of the future is going to entail. If they release it on Xbox PC and they make Xboxes just PCs, technically they hit that target. But if they just completely skip Xbox as a brand and it's just Steam, PS5, and Nintendo Switch 2, I think you could very theoretically say this does not bode well for the future of what it means to be an Xbox. Time will tell. Like, I'm reading a lot into this. Personally, I think, and I'm fully on board for Microsoft and the Xbox being that, in a way, Steam, console, that Steam box that Steam tried to do a while back. They have to compete against Steam. Steam is actually starting to eat their lunch, and Steam OS has been doing really good things, and it bridges the console and the PC experience together. That's what it does. And all they really would need to do in order at least to get me on board is release another Steam box and really kind of bring that experience full throttle, because it supports all the controller types, PlayStation, Xbox, and more. So I think essentially that's what I think Microsoft has to compete against. And when it comes down to No Rest for the Wicked, the PC storefront I think makes the most sense, because if Xbox is just a PC at that point, there you go. Anyway, that's a little bit of an aside. I do think that's going to be interesting, and any Xbox fans, I know you've been asking for updates on this. Sound off in the comments. I really want to hear from you guys about what Thomas just said there. Does this have you concerned? Does this have you hopeful? Where are you? Let me know. All right, Thomas goes on to say, especially a thank you, that there's still a lot of work left regarding 1.0. So don't think, January 2026. However, he thinks pretty optimistically about where they are, and once 1.0 launches, and confirms that obviously 1.0 is just the start. There are going to be expansions after this. There's not going to be a Wicked 2 or a Wicked 3. I mean, maybe if we were talking 20 or 30 years down the road, but when it comes down to No Rest for the Wicked, they're going to add in kind of the expansion models to this game, so that if you want to continue the story beyond that. 1.0 will be their Fellowship of the Ring. They do have plans to continue it out in a way of, he compares it to the Lord of the Rings, which honestly, I think they're hitting a lot of good notes on that. It's going to be neat to see where it kind of falls when the story is finished. Now, he goes on to say, especially when asked, excuse the question, but how long do you think you'll be working on the Wicked? And he says, if everything works out well, it's still going to be working on it for the next 5 to 10 years. So think about that. In terms of it, roughly speaking, if you think 5 to 10 years time frame, that could be an expansion perhaps every 2 years to really kind of hit that, full-on trilogy, quote unquote, all within the games itself. Now, when asked about if there's going to be a demo, he says that they've actually done demos with the Ori and the Blind Forest, and it actually did not do much for them in terms of sail through, which I find interesting. That's where essentially I've always kind of liked and enjoyed Game Pass personally, because it's just a video game rental service that lets me try a game before I either decide to purchase it or not. But, here we are. Demos, not necessarily the best thing, at least from their hands-on perspective. Here's where I want to get to with this 1.0 roadmap and where we are in terms of what you can expect for the 1.0 release. Zach says, currently we know about the co-op update, so if you're thinking about milestones, Sacrament, Combat 2.0, and Crucible 2.0, and classes being a major update all throughout that. Most likely, I'm putting the classes with the Combat 2.0. So that is their kind of rough schedule, and he wanted to know if there's any updates that they could share, and he says, not yet, but they are working on a more official manner to update us all, especially some of these updates that will combo together later. Now, what that means is I read this and I'm now expecting some kind of official roadmap, road to 1.0. Most likely, I would expect to see something like that come out after the co-op update, because the number one thing that will bubble up to the surface once co-op is done is where I want more content. What's the road of content and how does that look out for us? So I think that's going to be the perfect time just for them to sit down and say, hey, co-op is here. What is our roadmap for the release? And that's where we're going to start to get into a more specific time frame. Roughly speaking, if we're looking at, and let's put it at 3 months, but you could also slide it a little bit further per update. So if the co-op update is out in September, maybe we're going to see Sacrament at the end of this year or early start into the new year. Combat most likely around the 2-year anniversary of that. Crucible 2.0 that might all be sprinkled throughout of this. So if you're thinking about the spring of 2026, it is very feasible that the game 1.0 releases either summer or most likely, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, fall 2026 for the full release of this game. Now, that I think is really good news. They want to get 1.0 out. It's going to mean sales for them. It's going to mean that funding. They are a fully independent studio. They're publishing their own game. That means everything, comes down to their budgets and more. So them getting this game into the hands of more people, and that's going to be console players as well, will be a really good thing for them. And that will help set the tone in terms of, what the roadmap looks like after that. How quickly do we see expansions and funding and so much more. Now, we got a couple of questions and answers from the community. Wolfie asks, sorry, this question's already been asked, but would rugs and rune chests also be possible in addition? And Thomas says, yes, of course, they're going to be adding in more organization features in the weeks and months to come as they continue to improve upon the game. Sick Spike asks, any plans for multiplayer in the sense of interacting with randoms, not just co-op, but with people outside of the game? Stuff like with PvP and randoms that queue into dungeons, invasions, trade, I don't know. But not sure the current community cares for this kind of stuff, but what kind of world where you could easily interact with random people online, even a tiny bit, it always feels more alive to me in games. And Thomas says, we'll have to see. First, they're going to have to deliver the co-op experience. And then that's obviously including inviting friends, family to your realms and being able to play the entire game together in the whole new way. So that's going to be interesting to see if they decide to evolve that. We've talked about that in a way, like the evolution of the game. And my thing is keep it focused, make it fun. And then if the game continues to evolve from there and then they add in more ways to kind of see and play with other people, then cool. But don't sit here and try to over engineer a solution when it might not necessarily be how people end up vibing with the game in the long run. Thomas goes on to say quite a few people are also, including Asmon, have mentioned that they want to play Wicked with some more intimate camera work. So they've been really continuing to mess around to see what is feasible, showing a screenshot of his personal settings. Don't expect this anytime soon, guys. But it seems like the third-person camera option is continuing to move forward within development and highlighting that. And he also goes on to showcase a video of more of the third-person camera play on his ultra-wide screen here, which is always beautiful. But you guys can check out that footage right here. I think it's really interesting to see. This is, again, going to be something that I think will be much further down the line. And I'm wondering how it will ultimately play out with custom realms. Do you let people play with third-person and, that isometric? Time will tell. He goes on to say, yeah, there's going to be some more work that they put into it since the last time, but they still need to fix a bunch of stuff and so on. It's obviously still a ways away and being shippable, but it still plays surprisingly well, and people are going to get a kick out of playing it that way. So I think this does confirm that third-person mode will be coming to this game. I don't expect it anytime soon, and maybe that's going to be something we see on a potential roadmap here later this year. Then going on, he says, yeah, it's a harder way to play, obviously, in some ways with third person, but it does feel more immersive as a trade-off. I always wanted to see what a Souls-like game would feel like from the top down, but all the top-down mods are really just meh. Making top-down work properly isn't easy. Anyway, he goes on to also say there's another idea he's been playing around with recently that he wants to play around with, and this, I think, is a hint at it. He goes on with this big post. All the folks that have been playing through Isla Sacra, and I think that they're a pretty incredible overworld already. it's just fun to explore, especially with multiplayer. One thing we've been thinking about is giving players a way to engage in the content without spoiling the story. Initially, I wanted to add a free roam mode where you would play the whole game in an endgame state without having to be concerned about the story, where everything would be open to you right away. So from the coast, you would immediately get to the Black Trench and try your luck there. Then we discussed this in some more thought. Hey, wouldn't it be fun to add survival elements to this? Think Don't Starve together. So instead of playing with Wicked in the traditional ARPG, since we already have all the mechanics, it might be fun to add a survival mode where you have to roam around the map, have to build up a base, and carefully plan out the day-night cycles, since night would spawn stronger enemies. We'll have to see how far we can get with that sort of thing in the period of time, but I think it might be worthwhile just to add so more players can have more value out of Wicked and the mechanics that have already played for hundreds of hours. They could get an entirely new experience. So those are the updates for you guys. Xbox might be skipped. The 1.0 update might be sooner than we all expect, which again, anything that pushes it out of 2026 and sometime into 2027 and sometime into 2026, I think I'm all for. Thomas, in the interview that he gave to me, was really generous in terms of talking about how a lot of the work has been done. It's just a matter of refining and polishing and really making it to the quality level that we all want. My personal view will always be, I really want them to cook. Obviously, that gets to a point where I don't want a game that, you know, you've announced 10 years ago and it's finally ready to roll out. So thankfully we're not there, but I do think we're now within striking distance, at least within the next year, for the release of this game. So thankfully, I don't think everybody has to wait long. This is also, I think, a good thing for them, having those kind of deadlines, making sure that they're releasing the game, and the benefit and the reward for them coming real soon. So all in all wins around. As we wind down the video, thanks everybody who has stuck around through the entirety of today's video. It really does mean the world to me. This month is kind of my membership drive month. So I just want to highlight Yamron, Yord, Lord Kazi, and Spirit Fire here for being members of the channel. It really is such a help and a value to the content, especially when the news is light and so much more. It helps keep everything rocking and rolling. If you guys want to either thank a member in the comments or be sure maybe check it out for yourself, membership just starts at $3 and it does help out the channel immensely. But if you, let's say, I get it, we've all been there, membership isn't in the cards. The other way you could really kind of help the channel out is checking out the podcast channel, the Gaming Roundtable. We've been rebranding it, so there's been some pluses and some minuses. We've seen growth, and we've also seen a little bit of decline in the subscribers, but we're seeing a lot more watch time, a lot more views, which is really exciting to see. So thank you to all of you who've checked it out. It's the third link in the description if you want to go and hit that subscribe button on the podcast. That's a great free way of also supporting the content here, because it all essentially evens out together. So I would encourage you guys, especially if you can't do a membership, go check out the podcast. We live stream it Fridays at noon Central Time. And or you could always watch the VODs or the clips as they roll out on the channel as well. All that being said, guys, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for making this such a fun part of my day to sit down and give you guys all the latest news. I'll be back as soon as we have more news to share. You'll notice that I won't post if there's not real news to talk about, especially when it comes to No Rest for the Wicked. So, because again, I just want to make sure that you get some value out of these videos. I don't want to waste anybody's time. And I feel like now I'm kind of rambling and all. So I just want to leave you guys with this. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.
Yeah, no rest for the wicked, we rise and we ride. This ain't no checkpoints, all that you got. Grip tight the blade, feel the burn in your chest. One life, one shot, now die like the best. Yeah, 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 yeah. Guitar solo rips to his